From Johannesburg, Nairobi, Lagos, these are some of the busiest cities in Africa, but also some of the most populated cities as well, with millions of people who live and move through these spaces each and every day. But for many, city life can also feel surprisingly lonely. It feels like a little bit of a contradiction, doesn't it? We're all there. There's so many people. How can you be lonely around so many people? This is a phenomenon called crowd loneliness, and it seems like more and more of us in the cities are experiencing it. Why does it happen in our big cities? What makes urban environments so difficult for real human connection? And what can individuals do and communities do as well to reconnect in meaningful ways, even in these spaces? Today we're speaking about this crowd loneliness with a clinical psychologist, Siphesihle Dlamini, joining us on the lines. Siphesihle, it's a pleasure to have you. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me. How are you guys doing?
Doing
Hey, we're
amazing,
very
thank you.
good. Thank you.
I was looking at the contradiction between where I live right now, where my own family is, in a townhouse complex somewhere in the suburban city areas, versus where I'm from, which is from a township. And I see the interactions that my mother has in that space, how they connect with the neighbors, how they all know each other, how anyone can just walk in and knock at your door for whatever reason they have, versus me who lives in a place where everyone has to drive through the same gate to gain access into the complex, but we hardly know each other. Even outside of those WhatsApp groups that we have in the complex, we don't really have a connected feeling amongst one another. Why is it so different? I mean, it's so hard to think about the fact that there's so many of us, but we're still feeling lonely.
Remember the one where the rural areas, it's where we're born, it's where we're raised, it's where we grow up, it's where largely our personality gets developed. So when we move or we migrate from the rural areas to the urban areas, we are migrating as fully developed individuals first and foremost, and we are going into a new environment where there's new people, new personalities, and new dynamics socially. So now we're moving from what we typically call a community-based setting to a more social setting where now it's a melting pot of a variety of people who come from different backgrounds. So the difference in backgrounds then sometimes make people very scared or intimidated in initiating communication or contact
Sure.
with people because, yes.
That's so interesting that you say that because some of us are actually from rural, not from a rural environment, but from an urban
Yeah.
environment. But we were probably raised like in a township, right? And,
Yes.
the township has a lot of activity. You know your neighbors, you have no choice. You're in
Yeah.
such close proximity to them. But when you get into certain parts of the city, it gets a little bit lonely. Is that loneliness because of the architecture? Is it because of the lifestyle? What do you think informs it? I know you're not a town planner, you're a clinical psychologist, but is there something about our behavior as humans where we socialize ourselves differently depending where you are?
Yes, definitely. So typically with social identity, it means we are most likely to deviate towards or look for individuals that align with how we see ourselves and how we identify as individuals. But now that becomes tricky in the more urban areas because to identify people means you have to first and foremost be able to spend time with them, which we don't have between having to wake up and go to work. We have errands, we have families, we have other responsibilities, and most of our time we spend at work. So outside of interacting with your workmates, there's very little time to interact with other people outside to actually find who are your people, who's your crowd, who do you align with more. So then the challenge then becomes, where's the time for me to actually interact with these people? Are the areas available for me to interact, something that I align with? Am I a clubbing person? Am I a book club type of person? Am I a coffee shop type of person? Or am I more of a movie cinema type of person? So then now going into those areas, then the other question is that environment then also secondly conducive to actually form relationships and engage in a healthy manner to actually learn more about the individual and who that individual actually is so that you can form healthy relationships that can last longer.
Yeah. Let's speak about the loneliness itself. I think many of us have often associated loneliness with being alone, but we're speaking about places and spaces here where a lot of people exist. In fact, in a lot of these urban settings, there's a house on top of a house on top of a house, and there isn't even yard space. We're
Sure.
also closely,
Yes.
linked together in terms of geographically. But we're not particularly alone, but we still feel very lonely. Let's unpack that feeling of loneliness. Why is it happening to us?
Well, it might be a multitude of factors. One, loneliness alone, we can't say it's then linked to a mental illness, but we can say that it's part of the symptoms that then say maybe there's something wrong with this individual. Remember, with mental illness, then there has to be a multitude of issues to say, then this person is likely to be depressed or anxious, because we have to look at things like, am I enjoying life? Is my loneliness part of the fact that I've lost interest in life, and I've lost interest in doing things that are enjoyable? I've lost interest in wanting or having a desire to interact with people. Or is it a fear in interacting with people? Then we say, okay, your loneliness is a problem. When we need to look closer into it, we need to maybe start looking for help. As opposed to loneliness where you just, you're having a lazy day and you don't want to go out and just socialize because you're tired. Work, the week has been long, it's been tired, you've had to achieve a lot of goals, and you just want a moment of rest. Where loneliness is a sense of actually preserving, as opposed to being a more socially withdrawn and concerning behavior. So between the two, we then have to, with interacting with the individual, say, is this a problem, or is this I'm resetting, I'm recharging, so that next week I'm a better, more fulfilled individual.
Yeah, but how is it maybe that most of it is basically on just the way we live in these urban environments? Everyone sticks to their own business. We are own business minders in these complexes that we live in. And another one, you don't want to feel like you're being intrusive to a neighbor, but also you need to know the people around you. And sometimes it's just around how you also socializing yourself in that environment, right?
Yes, I think, like you're saying, Benjamin, it's you already have a feeling to say, I don't want to be intrusive to my neighbor.
Yeah.
Your neighbor probably has the same thought to say, I don't want to be intrusive to my neighbor. So then now we're living in a community where we are all afraid of intruding or stepping on each other's toes. And because we're not too sure if that person wants to interact, we're not sure if that person wants to have a relationship. But when you go on social media, everyone is complaining about the same thing. I want to have friends, I want to make stronger connections, but no one is actually taking the plunge or the initiative to do it out of fear, because everyone is also just trying to respect the other person. Remember, the respect is not necessarily probably from fear alone, but it's also from where we grow up as people from the rural or township areas, where we want to respect our neighbors, we want to respect other people, and by doing that, we don't want to then overimpose ourselves in their space without being welcome. But also, the culture of the urban areas has just kind of communicated without it being a verbal thing, where everyone wants to keep in their own space, their own shell, for various reasons, because of multiple fears, multiple thoughts, and multiple doubts. Or but just the fact that people have families already and they want to spend as much time with their families, and there's no time to actually
Yeah.
then interact with other people. Those who do not have families, then it becomes an issue of, I've migrated, but I don't know anyone where I've migrated to. I'm a new individual. I still need to navigate the environment. Remember, urban areas are very different from rural areas
Yeah.
because of safety issues. We all know the stats of crime, of safety, of
Yeah,
break-ins.
sure.
That's why largely our estates are gated communities, because of the crime rates. So then there's other factors, social factors, that also impact. And when you think of going out, you look at the stats of okay, what are the safeties of me going out? How safe am I as a woman? How safe am I as a man to go out there statistically?
Yeah.
When I go out clubbing and when I go out late clubbing, So we need to take into consideration all of these factors before we wanna go out and interact, because you
Yeah.
don't know what your neighbor is capable of or has capacity of.
Yeah. Okay, Siphesihle, we need to take a short break. Stay with us. It's really interesting to unpack this conversation because I know it's affecting so many of us in this modern day urban living. We're speaking about crowd loneliness. Why is it happening in our big cities? Are you feeling it? Sometimes I am as well. So I'm sure there's so many of us who are. It's 20 minutes past 9, the Central Africa time. We'll continue this conversation in a bit.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Palesa and Benjamin fuel your day with fresh African perspective on Channel Africa.
Have you moved into a new complex and you're like, ish, yo, no, man, it's so quiet here. I haven't seen my neighbors in the longest time. And maybe you work those awkward hours when you go back to home and you enter the complex, everyone is in their homes and you don't know actually how to knock in your neighbor's apartment and actually introduce yourself. And you're like, you know what, let me let them be. And over time, this builds that kind of loneliness. Like, I don't really know anyone around here. How do you navigate that? That's what we're talking about with our home girl. I think we can call Siphesihle our home girl now. She is our personal psychologist in our show. That's Siphesihle Dlamini, clinical psychologist, who always gives us practical ways to navigate emotional and also psychological matters. Siphesihle, that's the thing, right? Because our patterns are very different. I stayed in a flat which was for a very long time, and I don't think I knew a lot of my neighbors, but there was one neighbor that I really did like at the bottom. It was a lady staying with his son, and somehow I got just connected with his son, and we used to greet. He used to come visit me. Times he would sit on my porch and I used to sit with him as well, just have a little chat. He was very, very young at that age. I think he was around 5 or 4, but that was the connection that I had. And at times I would have more of a connection with the little one than the mother, but that was good enough for me. I was like, yeah, at least I've got a homie in this complex. But for me, I think you need to break that kind of rhythm, right? Maybe find something, a moment, a greeting. Maybe don't just greet and walk off. Maybe greet and with a how are you? Stay there and really listen and have a conversation rather than hi, how are you? I'm okay. I'm also okay. And we move on.
Yeah. Like I was saying earlier, that the challenge becomes, like you're saying now, that we live in a fast-paced life, that we don't really have time to actually make meaningful connections because you're coming from work and you're tired. So that 5-year-old is a child who's new to the world, is navigating the world, is trying to make connections, and they're already born in that environment. So for a child, they don't have to filter through so many layers of, is it safe, is it what, and like us who already have such great exposure. So yes, definitely taking an extra minute or two to talk to your neighbor. Oh, neighbor, how are you? When you see them gardening or watering their lawn or whatever, you make time, you go chat with them. How are you? How are you doing? Invite them for sometimes it takes you being the brave one
Sure.
and initiate and do and extend the first invite to your neighbor to say, do you like watching soccer? There's a game coming up. Let's watch it together at my house. Or do you like going out? Are you a movie person or what? If outside of that, then also look into your workspace. Is there someone at your workspace that you are connecting with? Are you having healthier relationships? Because remember, we don't need to have 100 friends.
Sure.
We just need to have 2 or 3 meaningful friendships that are gonna then fill in the gaps where we need social interaction and social communication.
You know, I think there is also something else to blame, and that could be the westernization of who we are. As Africans, you spoke about culture a little bit earlier on. We are, innately communal as a people, but when we go into the cities, it feels like we're becoming more and more westernized. And because of that, we're trying to blend into a culture that has nothing to do with us, a culture that's not our own. And now we move further and further from ourselves. When you feel those feelings of loneliness, it can be quite detrimental to your mental health, because you know that you have neighbors, you know there are people all around you at work, at home, here and there. But because you're not particularly connected to the culture of who we are as African people, you feel like you just can't find anybody around you. And that can be quite detrimental for your mental well-being, can't it?
It definitely can, because remember, social isolation is one of the most visible areas where we can say maybe there's something of concern that needs to be addressed, so that it doesn't grow into something that's bigger and more clinical. Remember, coming for mental health does not necessarily mean be or have a mental illness. You can always come in to do a checkup.
Sure.
Listen, I'm new to the area. I'm struggling to adjust. And I always tell my patient, give yourself grace. You trying to navigate a new area. You have to learn and unlearn some behaviors and some thought patterns so that you can properly adjust into the new environment that you're coming into, and being brave. I think maybe that might sound like a small thing, but being
Sure.
brave also goes a long way into also challenging these negative thoughts that might impact our ability to actually extend ourselves and actually reach for the things that we want to have, i.e., such as social context and social relationships.
Yeah, that's so cool.
When it
Yeah.
comes, yeah,
I love
so
yeah.
it becomes.
Go ahead. Yeah,
Oh,
you can
sorry.
go ahead. You can continue your thought though. I think we have a delay in the system.
So remember, adjusting takes time, and maybe the biggest challenge is that we want to rush the process of, oh, I'm new, or I need to immediately make friends, make connections. Take time, learn yourself, find your feet, and be able, so that you can be able to also assess the environment that you're in and properly know, okay, this is what's happening here, this is how things are. You can learn a lot from sitting in your porch and just existing and seeing what your neighbors do, or your neighbor. Okay, we're not saying stalk your neighbors. Let's just get that out of the way.
Yeah, that's another conversation for
For
another
another
day.
day.
No, that's another conversation for another day. But we're saying be present,
Sure.
be mindful of the space that you're in and the people that you are in, because then you might learn that, oh, my neighbor actually has kids.
Yes.
And I have a child. Maybe
Sure.
you're a single parent. I have a child. They have a child that's around the same age. Oh, neighbor, I notice you have kids. Can we schedule a play date?
Yeah.
And you notice that when it's Sundowns versus Pirates, all your neighbors are rooting, and you can hear from the sound, oh, this one is a Pirates fan based on who wins the game. And you're
Yeah.
like, it doesn't matter for me. Oh, neighbor, are you a soccer person? Are you a game? So it starts being, be present first and foremost. Ground yourself. Be present in where you're existing. Understand that you're coming from a different environment and you're trying to adjust into a new environment.
Yeah.
And in doing that, give yourself grace to learn and unlearn new things.
I love that
And
that you're speaking about bravery and actually taking that particular steps. What also has helped me, Siphesihle, is that it's so great as well that there are institutions and organizations, there are clubs, there are sports facilities in your environment. Tap into those as well, because those can be fantastic resources. Get into a church maybe and find out what it's all about. And I know it probably is not your home church, but try use the facilities around your area to connect with the community.
yes, which is what I mean by saying learn your environment, learn the space that you're in.
Yeah.
Because remember, you might be coming from a place where it's just a park and a tavern.
Yeah.
And now there's a multitude of options. Join a running club. You meet people, develop new hobbies, and open your mind up to more, because remember, you are in an environment where maybe more was not available.
Yeah, sure.
But now you're in an area where it is a possibility. So then tap into that, learn new skills, learn a new hobby. And in that you will find new people, go to new places. There's nothing wrong with taking yourself out on a date.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
that. I do that once a month. You know, I've got this ritual, Siphesihle, where I'm like, this is a me date. And it's actually great where you find different spaces and have conversations with environments that you usually wouldn't find yourself in, and meet people and interact there. But I'm going to leave it there, Siphesihle. Thank you for giving us your time.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
It's always good having you, Siphesihle. That's Siphesihle Dlamini, clinical psychologist. Do you struggle with this one? Maybe you've moved into a new place. Maybe you've been in an area for a very, very long time and you're just like, I'm struggling to break into this community. Let us know how your experience is in moving from one place to another and finding yourself in an environment where you're feeling lonely a little bit and you just can't break through. Maybe you find ways that you can break through. Let us know about your experience with this topic.